Yeah, it's hard to believe, but there was once a time that I waited for Halloween with the same kind of excitement and vigor, usually only reserved for Christmas. Welcome, everybody. My name is Bobby Gaines, and this is a video rant called Halloween, a Retrospective, in which I'm going to look back at what has been one of the biggest holidays of my life for various reasons. Halloween, October 31st. It has been a day that has had its ups and downs, but ultimately it's been a very rewarding day. And that's kind of what I want to focus on. And I've been meaning to do something like this for a while, but I figured this would be the best time to do it, coming off of the excellent Halloween that was last year. Now, Halloween, believe it or not, was always a huge thing for me as a kid. I mean, comparing it to Christmas right now kind of seems absurd, but at one time it really wasn't too far off. Much like Christmas, you had your own decorations, music, movies, and of course you had the big gimmick, which was dressing up as these various characters and getting candy. So as a kid, I mean, it wasn't quite the level of Christmas, but it was always something very exciting, to the point where I used to get excited for Halloween back in August and September, whereas now I get excited for Christmas in October. It's kind of a very similar parallel, and there are a lot of reasons for that. I mean, Halloween used to entail a lot more than what it does now. And right now I'm actually showing some images that I've never shown before, because this was before I had my first camcorder. This was back in the early to mid-90s, some of the Halloweens I had, going over nannies as all these different things. As far as my video days, the first Halloween I ever caught on camera, on video camera, was Halloween 1999.
I look good, I look good, I look good.
Yeah, so tomorrow we're ready for the big party.
Woohoo!
And that was a really great Halloween. Actually, it's kind of funny. The Spider-Man costume that I wore got worn so much. Like, I pretty much ripped the crap out of it just from wearing it so often. I wore it as pajamas for like the next year and a half after that. In fact, there's a picture of me, and I couldn't find it, but there is a picture of me posing on Christmas morning in 1999 with my new air hockey table, and I was wearing the Spider-Man costume without the mask. I mean, I wore that thing a lot. And obviously, I don't know what happened to it, and I grew out of it. But that was an awesome Halloween. But that wasn't, anything out of the ordinary. I mean, before that, I had all these great costumes. There was always some significance to it, even if it was just me as a kid. And it was always kind of this big thing, what I was going to be for Halloween. Like, I put as much stock in that as I do for Christmas today. So, there were a few years in there in the 90s. I was Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat. I was Sonic the Hedgehog. All the way up to like 2001, I say, is when I kind of stopped caring as much about the costume. In 2001, another Halloween that wasn't caught on camera, I was a biker dude, actually. I had this ridiculous hat and sunglasses, and I was pretty much a walking stereotype for motorcycle people. But again, one thing that has stayed the same is going to nannies. Although in recent years, and by recent I mean like in the last 10 years, in the recent years, going to nannies has almost become kind of a farce.
Okay.
Play the piano man thing.
It's the fifth time people have asked me to do that.
Do it.
Alright. They gotta film this? Whatever.
Uh-oh, who's that?
Go, play them a song. You're the candy man.
Candy.
Trick-or-treaters, let's film them.
Go film you getting an apple, because that's what this night has been reduced to. You know if those what kind of shoes are those?
Get her tying the shoes.
I got it.
You filming?
Yeah, where are these shoes? Where are these shoes from?
Oh my God, he's got a knot.
why.
You don't even have to go away.
Ma!
Ma! I can outlaw you any day.
That doesn't make it any less of a tradition. I mean, there is still something awesome, admittingly, about being able to go to nannies and have these Halloween-themed adventures, even like I did last year. And I don't see that part of it going away anytime soon, but it is still hard to compare it. Not even close, Hard to compare it to the Halloweens of the past, because I always used to have kind of it was like an all-day thing. I mean, I would put on my costume early in the day. I would go to this Halloween party that we had at St. Joseph's School back in the 90s. That's where I went to school for 2nd to 8th grade. So there was always this Halloween party where they'd have a haunted house and a dance and food and drinks, and we'd all be in our costumes, and it was a really great time. I think I only got that on camera once in 2000, which is a shame, because that was a fantastic time, always getting to see what everybody else dressed as, and also getting to just kind of party. And that was kind of the thing And that's what sets Christmas apart from Halloween, is that Christmas is a very unified holiday. Like, everybody's into Christmas, it seems. Halloween, especially as you get older, people stop caring as much. And certainly that happened to me, too. Even though at one time I didn't think it would. Halloween 2000 was also right at the apex of Halloween excitement. I was still in 7th grade at St. Joseph's. I was really into Halloween. Halloween and Christmas were just a devastating 1-2 punch. And, Halloween was always right up there. And that was the year I dressed as the Skull Ninja. Now, an interesting thing about the Skull Ninja costume, even though I outgrew the costume a long time ago, the mask actually saw some use as recently as, I want to say 2005, I definitely wore it. I want to say 2008 I even wore it. I'll have to look into the footage on that. But, no, the Skull Ninja costume, and I wish I had the mask with me. That part I don't know. But the Skull Ninja costume, I don't know what was so appealing about it, because honestly, it wasn't even a character. Like, it wasn't any well-known character. It was literally just a ninja with a skull mask sort of thing. And that was probably the best Halloween caught on tape. I don't know if it was the best Halloween of all time. I actually struggled to think about this earlier, because Christmas 1999 is probably always going to be the greatest Christmas of all time. But there's not really the same in Halloween, and that's not to say there weren't great Halloweens, because there have been, and I remember them as a collective, but I can't really say this Halloween was better than that Halloween, but that just kind of speaks to how epic the holiday used to be, where every year it delivered. I want to say from like 92 to like 2001. I mean, Halloween always delivered, and since then you've seen some decent Halloweens. I'm going to kind of talk about those now as we move into the modern Halloween era. And I consider the modern Halloween era to be post-St. Joseph's, because I would say after I graduated, or after I, graduated 8th grade at St. Joseph's, that's when the Halloween party stopped, and that was Halloween 2002. That was the first year that I wasn't going to a Halloween party at St. Joseph's, so that part of the night was gone now. However, I moved to Montville, which is where I live now. I moved recently, so trick-or-treating was a bit of a different experience. Back when I lived in New London, I lived in an apartment where you could go trick-or-treating just by going up and down the stairs to all the different apartments. Now, this was actually kind of cooler, I thought. For the first few years I lived here, trick-or-treating in this area was really cool. You can't really see it because I'm inside, but there's a pretty long street, and there's houses up and down the street. It's a big hill. At night it was kind of fun, to go out and meet some other kids and go trick-or-treating. And, it kind of started around 2003, 2004, where I would go to the people's houses, the families that lived there, and they would say things like, oh, you're kind of old to be going trick-or-treating. Now, I was about 15 years old at this point, and I would say 2004 was probably, oh no, that's not completely true, but 2004 was one of the last Halloweens that I truly enjoyed trick-or-treating, because I kind of set my own path. Usually I would just go up and down this street getting candy, but I kind of added to it. I was really ambitious. I got a lot of candy, and I figured I was in the mode at that point where I was like, you know what, Halloween is once a year. I may as well just go all out, and I did, and I have to give myself credit for that. That was when, I don't want to say the writing was on the wall, but that was when the era of Halloween was kind of going the other way. We were past the 1990s, we were past the early 2000s, and now Halloween was almost becoming sort of a thing. Like, it wasn't a holiday anymore, it was kind of an event. It was like a one-day event, which obviously differs from Christmas, where I celebrate it for like a month. Halloween was kind of just there, and it was like, the week before Halloween, especially going back to like 2010, like the week before Halloween had like no fanfare to it. It was like, all right, Halloween. I mean, the only evidence you need of that is Halloween 2003 and 2009. I wore pretty much the same costume. I just changed the mask. And then in Halloween 2010, again, I just kind of recycled some old Halloween costumes. Even Halloween 2005, that was kind of a down year. I just kind of recycled the Skull Ninja, maybe to recapture some of that youth. Halloween 2007 is significant only because it was, and still is, the last time I've gone trick-or-treating, and that was about 9 years ago now. And the reason for that is kind of interesting. I was dressed as Darth Vader that year. I actually really liked that costume, and in fact, I went to Avery Point that day, because I went to UConn Avery Point at the time. I actually went to college dressed as Darth Vader with the full mask and everything. I think I had like one class, and I took the mask off for the class, but I wasn't, the only one in costume, so it wasn't completely weird, but that was a fun time, because I actually played ping pong in my Darth Vader costume. Again, one of those memories that wasn't caught on camera, but it still happened, and that was actually, 2007 is weird, because it was a fun Halloween, but it was also the Halloween that trick-or-treating died. Because part of the reason I got the costume was, one, because I really thought Darth Vader was cool, but another one was, believe it or not, that you couldn't see me in the costume. Like, it was completely covering my face and my body. Like, you couldn't recognize me. Except you could tell that I was kind of tall, so I wasn't a kid at that point. So I was kind of, I don't want to say ashamed, but just from all the years of going through these same houses and hearing people say, oh, you're kind of old to be a trick-or-treater. I mean, I was like 17 at that point, so I just didn't want to deal with that anymore. So, you know, I wore the mask and the Darth Vader stuff to kind of cover that up. Not that, you know, I don't think people are really out to get me, but I don't know. It was kind of a convenient idea. So, 2007, I went to probably 3 or 4 houses down this road, and I don't know what happened, but I literally just kind of stopped. Like, I went to 3 or 4 houses dressed as Darth Vader with my pillowcase or whatever it was saying, trick or treat. You know, they put candy in my bag, and I don't know, after like 20 minutes of this, I was just kind of done. I just turned around and said, you know what? This really isn't that much fun. I think part of it is also that by 2007, I had my first job. I had my first job in 2006, so I could buy candy whenever I wanted. You know, back as a kid, getting all that candy was great, because, you know, you couldn't buy candy. Your parents wouldn't let you have candy that much. And for one day, you could have, like, hundreds of Kit Kat bars and Reese's and all that stuff. But now I could just go to the store and buy, like, 10 bags of it if I really wanted to, because I have the money and I also could eat candy. So I'm not saying that that was the reason. I think part of it was I was a little embarrassed, even though I was wearing all the costume. I still put on a costume. I still kind of celebrate the holiday, but I'm like more on the sidelines now. You know, I come to the door dressed as, you know, Venom last year and dressed as Dr. Robotnik, and I come to the door and say, hey, kids, what's up? You know, I'm still doing it, but I'm in a different role now. That's the way I look at it. And it's not a bad thing. It's kind of part of life. And I do look forward to the day, if this day ever comes, that I get married and have kids of my own, because then, you know, I can be dad going trick-or-treating with them and maybe still dress up and have that aspect of it. So in that way, Halloween hasn't, like, gone away. It's just kind of changed. Halloween has meant a lot of different things at a lot of different times, at least in the past 10 or so years. And part of that is kind of just what's going on at the time. And there's no better example of that than 2013, when I once again recycled pretty much the same costume from 2009. But this year I was a Red Sox fan, because the Red Sox had just come off winning the World Series literally the day before. And I kind of had that idea to begin with, even if the Red Sox didn't win the World Series. But I kind of just wore my Red Sox jersey with my Phantom mask. That was my Halloween costume for 2013. And, you know, I'm not going to say that was a great Halloween. That was a pretty good Halloween. I was also kind of just really excited the Red Sox had won. Halloween 2011 saw my most innovative costume in years, as I dressed up as Sonic's arch enemy, Dr. Robotnik, in a costume that was both simple and kind of complex at the same time. Now, that costume saw me, you know, putting on a fake mustache and big pillow under my shirt to, make me fat like Dr. Robotnik. And, but the most important, or most interesting part of that costume, I should say, were the video glasses that I used for Robotnik's goggles. I used my black video glasses, which served a couple purposes. One was it was part of the costume, but it also allowed me to get some pretty innovative shots. The reason I really liked that, the innovative feature, was that it kind of showed that even though Halloween was past its peak, I was still able to, make a really cool costume and enjoy it in my own way. And that was a heck of a video. That's still one of my favorite Halloweens in recent memory, Halloween 2011. And, it just kind of goes to show that, I'm extremely loyal. And I'm loyal to a fault. So Halloween has given me some of the greatest times of my life. I can't deny that, even now. Halloween has been a fantastic holiday. And, as much as I talk about the downturn of Halloween and all that stuff, I can't imagine a Halloween going by where I just kind of sit and do nothing. Even though it's not always like a 5-star production, I just can't imagine a Halloween where I just ignore it. Halloween will always mean something to me. And a great example of that, of course, was last year. Last year's Halloween was a fantastic return to form, to be honest. And after that holiday was over, I was actually a little bit confused as to what that meant for the holiday going forward. That's part of why I made this whole rant, was because I don't really know now. Right when I had written Halloween off, essentially, it delivered again, in a modern sense. I mean, dressing up as Venom, it was something I wanted to do for a long time, and for whatever reason, in September of 2015, I just felt the need to make that costume, and I made it. And I thought it came out fantastic given the circumstances, and that would have been enough if not for the fact that I had all these plans going on, going to Nani's house, but then going to a friend's Halloween party and just kind of, for the first time in a long time, getting to do that and just go nuts, wearing my Venom costume. And again, I really thought going into this year maybe Halloween would see that spike and, Halloween would get back to where it was, but I don't think that's possible. It's not, it is what it is, like I said, everything changes roles, changes meanings, and Halloween is no different. It was once a premier holiday. It was once, something I counted down the days until, and it's just not there anymore. But that doesn't mean it's not fun, and that doesn't mean that it won't always mean something to me as the years go on. I mean, it's such a crazy holiday when you really think about it. It's not one that's steeped in tradition, but it's still one that you know about. It's still a big holiday. As a kid, I always thought it was kind of weird that you didn't get it off from school. I was like, well, you get Christopher Columbus Day off from school. Why don't you get Halloween off? I mean, it was that big a deal to me. And it still is something, and I am prepared for Halloween 2016. I have done something. But even already, I can tell you I don't feel that same spark. And maybe that's a testament to Christmas this year, but I'll get to that in a future rant. My point is that Halloween, no matter how you celebrate it, it is a great holiday. And as much as I give it crap year in and year out about kind of, where it's gone, it's almost from the point of view of kind of an embittered child. It's kind of like, well, I don't get to have as much fun anymore, so nobody should, I'm always kind of like not as impressed with Halloween, like I DJ a Halloween party every year for kids. That's kind of like the one I used to go to as a kid. And I look at their costumes and I think, it's very tacky, whatever, not as much fun as we used to have. But, I mean, obviously it's like the same thing. So, Halloween never really changes as what it is. I guess it's just people change. And it's always been kind of hard for me to resolve that, to kind of cope with the fact that I have outgrown Halloween. And, it's still there, but it's not what it used to be. And that's okay, because it's still pretty great. So I look forward to it. It's coming up in a couple weeks, and as always, I'll have some kind of video and some kind of post-Halloween rant afterwards. You can count on that. But yeah, just wanted to do this, talk about Halloween as we get ready for 2016's version of it. Hard to believe it's already October again. So, happy Halloween to all. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.